Hi, I'm Billi Maddox, and I'm gonna mess this up so that you don't have to. So today I'm going to be showing you how to do a stencil. First of all, I just need to do a quick primer to this and we'll get into what I'm doing. So first of all, cutting a stencil. You have to sort of separate it out into all the colors that you're using. I didn't end up using this Lego brick as the stencil, but it's a good example for how to cut things out. So for this, essentially I had to cut out 3 red areas. A regular ass red, a slightly darker red for the top of the brick and the top of the studs of the brick, and also had to cut out the darkest red area. If you sort of look at the one to the left, you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. That front facing wall or side of it will be red, so you use this to paint the whole thing in red, and then you cut out your colors individually. Here I'm cutting out the darker areas, which is that left side and those shadow bits of the studs, and then I'm cutting out this whole top part for the medium red, because I'm gonna go back in and do the dark. But anyway, I didn't end up doing the brick, so just use these principles for any stencil that you're working on, because you don't have to do a Lego stencil, you just have to do a stencil. Here I'm showing you how they would be painted on. Here, these are the medium tones, which is that whole top bit, the top of the studs and the top of the brick, and then you come back in with your darker color, which is that left facing thing and the sides of the studs. So I ended up doing the Lego logo, and there's a couple things to go over here. Mainly with when you have something like a O that has a little hanging bit in the middle, there's no way to sort of put that onto a stencil, so you have to create a little tab so that it attaches to the rest of the word, so that it works as a stencil. You'll fill that in later. Damn it, there's a thing. You'll fill that in later. That was a message. So here I'm showing you how they lay down, and you see, so you've got your letters, even though it's done in sort of reverse order, but you got your letters, and then you got a little bit of a black outline and all the in-betweens of the letters, then the yellow outline, and then finally the red outline, and it all sits on a big old yellow thing. You'll get a better idea of it here with the stencils after I used them. So there's the white of the letters, the black that goes in between the sort of letters and in the O and stuff, and then the yellow outline, and then the red outline. So you get an idea of how you need to do it, except that it's in reverse order. You do the red, then the yellow, then the black, then the white. So here we go. Taping down your stencil. Make sure it's taped down. I did a sort of cross in the middle of the board and then also on the stencil, so I can kind of eyeball line it up. When you're doing this particular stencil, just keep in mind that I only needed a little outline. So I don't need to fill that whole area in red. I just need like a 1/4 inch all the way around, which is why you're gonna see me sort of sticking to the edge of the paper and sort of leaving the middle as is, because I'm not going to need that. That's going to be covered by another color. Oh yeah, peel that stencil up. It's so satisfying. What you're aiming for is sharp lines. You're going to come back and clean it up. It's never going to be super sharp, but you try your best. Here's the yellow, so I've already laid down the next stencil, even though it looks exactly the same, because it is exactly the same shape, just slightly smaller. Also a tip, always do your brush strokes from the paper into your work surface. Never go towards the paper, because you end up getting paint underneath that lip if you're pushing paint towards the stencil, if you understand what I'm saying. So go from the stencil to the board or whatever you're painting on. Never go from the board to the stencil, because you're gonna get paint underneath there, and that's what you're trying to avoid. You want really sharp lines in the end, even though you're gonna come back and clean them up always. Just always works out that way. So the next stencil is the black. I switched over to a smaller brush because the stencil itself is getting smaller. Also, the black is a bit runnier, so I wanted to have a bit more control. Yeah, that's why I switched to a smaller brush. Always keep in mind that you're gonna have to hold down that paper. It is paper, so hold it down as you're going and then peel that up. I'm gonna fill in the rest of that black in just a sec because you don't really need the stencil to do that, but you need to fill it in because you need the in between the letters needs to be black, and the little hole for the O at the end needs to be black. So I go back and fill that in just a sec. You'll see. Fill in. See, all the lines are kind of a little bit hairy, but we're gonna go back in and cut. So here I'm doing a little bit of touch-up work. I'm going back in with the red and just sort of widening some areas that felt a little kind of thin because maybe the yellow stencil that went on top of it kind of didn't go on like fully centered, but it's all fixable. So I'm going back in and sort of building that red back up so that it's all one thing. So here you see I filled in the black completely. I'm doing the white now. So here's a tip. When you have these little hanging areas like that, the area of the G that sort of tucks into the letter, and also the hole of the O, do those areas first. You're gonna need as much clean area as possible to hold those little tabs down. But also, once you start adding paint once you start painting, the paper itself is gonna like accumulate some moisture, because you're introducing moisture to the mix. So those areas are gonna curl up on you. So you wanna do them first so that you get them as dry and as fresh as possible. You're gonna sort of think, oh no, I'm gonna go left to right and I'm gonna do the L and then the E and then the G and then the O. No, do those little tab areas first because they will start curling up on you even if they don't directly have paint, because you're introducing moisture to the paper. So that's why I'm doing those first, just to knock them out, and then I know I can kind of relax a little bit while I'm doing the rest of it. Now for stencils in general, like what you're looking to do is to get sharp outlines. You're not really worried about the fill-in. As you see, the white looks a little bit patchy right now. I'm gonna go back in and I'm gonna clean that up. But what I'm trying to get is a really clean outline while the stencil is down. You can't really do too much paint work per se while the stencil is on. You just kind of need to get the shape of it, and then you can come back and help it out a little bit. You see, I'm using sort of other tools in here to try to get the stencil down so that it doesn't sort of curl up on me. Like I said, it will start to curl a little bit, so plan that ahead. So I'm using whatever implements I have on my desk to kind of hold areas down and get the stencil down. See, I'm just using this to kind of hold this down while I'm doing this other bit of the stencil here on the L. I don't want to take an L on this, so I'm holding it down there. And then I'm coming back in and just kind of, you see, I'm sort of building that white up so that it's all nice and none of the colors underneath are sort of showing through. But it'll need several coats, like anything, So let's tear that off carefully. And I take my stencil off while they're wet still, so that it doesn't sort of pull up any of the paint if it dries. And you see, so it's looking very kind of suspect right now. You see, I filled in that part of the O, so it's really easy to sort of fill in that tab. And now what I'm doing is I'm coming in and with the black, so I've got black on my brush now. This is what's called in graffiti, it's called cutting. It's called cutting your lines, right? So I'm using the black to shape the white, if that makes sense, right? So you see that L right now, if you just take a look at that L, it's kind of got like a little bit of a hairy line, right? So, and the O right there that you're looking at right now, it's a little bit hairy there. So I'm coming back in with the black to quote unquote cut the white. And that just makes sure that it just makes it much cleaner. it's always, you're never going to be able to do a stencil perfectly the first time. So these are sort of the steps you have to do. So it's going to come out a little bit hairy. You see that G is kind of, the top and the bottom of that G is touching a little bit. I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut that. I'm going to cut bits of the O so that everything is nice and sharp and clean looking. And I'll do that, I'll cut the white with the black. I'm going to come back and cut the yellow. I'm going to cut the black with the yellow, and then I'm going to cut the red with the, you know what I mean. You cut the white with the black, you cut the yellow, you cut the black, you know what I mean. You just use the next color over to come back in and cut the color next to it. You know what I mean? Right here, I'm just adding little areas of black that sort of felt a little thin to me. And I'm coming back and, okay, yeah, there we go. Just so that it's nice and clean. I guess I had a lot of trouble with that E because I keep coming back and cutting into that E. But you see, it starts to look cleaner and cleaner and cleaner as it gets on. It's time consuming, but you can make it look like, right now I've got it looking like it's a sticker, which is, that's sort of where I want it to go. And then you start to realize, like, could I have just gotten a sticker of this? But, it's good, it's good. Okay, here I'm cutting the G. See, I'm just adding a teeny tiny bit of black. And what you want to do is sneak up onto the white. So you're painting a lot of the black on black and moving it incrementally closer and closer to the white until you cut the line that you want into it. And this is pretty much done here at this point. So thanks so much for watching. Roll the thing!